Hey guys, it's Laura from Laura Riley Calligraphy. Today I will be doing a quick tutorial on pointed pen calligraphy and how to get started with that. So if you're unfamiliar with the term pointed pen calligraphy, I'm talking about the traditional pen holder plus metal nib setup, and particularly I'm talking about the flexible nib that you see here. So it's that really sharp edge with the flexible nib. So if you've never used one of these before, it's a great way to get started with calligraphy, and this is what I learned with first. So I think when I started calligraphy, I was about 14 years old, and I got started with the traditional pointed pen. So it's definitely a favorite of mine. So I'm really excited to show that to you today. Just as an example of some of the things that you may see that are done with pointed pen calligraphy are wedding invitations and envelopes. And here's a couple examples. So all of these were done with pointed pen, and you can see that trademark difference in the line is the big thing with pointed pen, is you get those really thin, pretty hairlines, and that really those really nice variations in line. So that's what we're after today. I'm going to show you how to achieve that. First of all, I want to explain the supplies because they're very important for getting a good start. And if you head over to my Etsy shop, you can get all of the supplies that I'm using today in a calligraphy starter kit, so you'll be able to do all of this at home very easily. So I'm going to start by showing you the parts of the pen, some of the supplies that I use, and then just the basics of how to use it when you're getting started. So I'll go ahead and dive right in. So this is my pen. I'm just using a speedball oblique holder here. This is the cheapest oblique holder on the market. It's great, really sturdy, and I use it all the time. So there's really no need to get a really fancy pen holder, although they are very fun, so feel free to explore and get a really pretty one. But these ones are great, sturdy, good for experts and beginners alike. So this is a great one to use. The nib that I'm using is called a Zebra G nib. Now, just a heads up, they no longer make these speedball holders fit the Zebra G holders. I'm not sure what they did with their newest batch of holders, but they don't fit the Zebra anymore. So if you want a comparable nib to the Zebra G, the Nico G, so that same G nib will work with the new batch of speedballs. So in my calligraphy kit on Etsy, I sell the Nico Gs, but they're very similar, so not too bad of a difference. I just have always used this Zebra G with it, so they're kind of best friends. So I'm going to show you the different parts of the nib and explain how they work. So this is just a typical, can you see it? Oh, where am I? There we go. There's a typical nib. It's kind of out of focus. Let me get that in focus. Okay. So you can see that the tines of the nib, it's got two tines at the tip. So when I press on that, they flex apart. So that is really important for when you do the pointed pen calligraphy. If your nib is not flexing properly, your words will not look the way that they are supposed to look. So you won't get those good variations in the strokes. So when you press on the paper, you should see those tines flexing. So if I hold my pen like this, you see that my tines don't flex. If I hold it up like this, they don't flex. And anywhere that you press on them that's not directly centered, they're not going to flex properly. So you may have to work on adjusting your grip a little bit in order to make that nib flex the right way. So just keep that in mind. I know that's probably the number one issue that I see people have when getting started, is getting the correct pressure and the correct angle of their nib. So especially if your grip is different so if you tend to hold your pen like this, or you hold it in a different way at all, it can be a little tricky. So just remember, those tines need to be flexing for it to work the right way. So however you hold it, you need to make sure those tines are flexing, okay? So when we go to ink our nib, I just use Black Sumi ink. Mine is Yasutomo ink, and it's really a really great brand. I've used that forever. There are lots of different inks you can get, and the Black Sumi is just kind of a type of ink. So I really like this ink, but you can use whatever you find that works great for you. So when you dip your nib in the ink, you just want to dip right past the center hole. You don't want to dip it too far in there, but you also don't want to just dip the tip in there. Okay, so you can see how my nib is nicely inked, and that should flow real well, okay? So when I go to write, I'll just kind of show you, I push down and you can see the nibs flexing. Now the reason my ink's not flowing is it looks like I have some oils on my nib. So you see how some of the nib is not covered? That means there's some oils. So maybe I touched my nib or, you know, fiddled with it or whatever. So just wipe that off. If your ink doesn't flow right away, just wipe that off and try again. So I'm going to re-ink it. That's a common problem, so it's okay that you saw me have that issue because you'll probably run into that too. Okay, so now you can see that more of my pen is covered, so let's make sure that this is going to work this time. That's why it's always handy to have a piece of paper like next to your project, and you always kind of blot your nib and test your nib before you start writing. So that's a great tip to have because your nib can act up all the time. So blotting and false starts are pretty common. Okay, so you can see the basic parts of a stroke are our downstroke and our upstroke. So that's kind of the foundation of writing when pointed pen calligraphy is you want to have those nice thick downstrokes and those nice thin hairline upstrokes, and that'll give you those really pretty wispy lines and strong letters. So a good way to practice that is kind of what I did to begin with, is you just do kind of a zigzag, press down, release the pressure up, press down, release pressure up. So your nib should be flexing on the downstroke and coming together on the upstroke. And I generally don't put any pressure down on my nib when I'm going on the upstroke, okay? So you want to practice getting these downstrokes to be the same consistent thickness, and then the upstrokes, try to get those to be the same consistent thickness so that you can really count on your letters being consistent. And this comes with practice. Like I tell a lot of people that I teach, this is all muscle memory, so it may be a little bit frustrating at first, a little bit tricky to kind of retrain your hand to do this. So don't get frustrated. It's all about retraining your brain and getting some of that muscle memory. Once you kind of get that feel of the downstroke and the upstroke, it will be second nature. So keep at it. It is not a skill that just kind of happens. So maybe for some people, maybe some people are naturally inclined to do it, but I promise it is not something that, even if you have really great handwriting, you still have to retrain your brain a little bit to use the nibs if you've never done that before. So don't get discouraged if it doesn't work quite right the first time. Just keep practicing, and that will get you where you want to go. I've been doing it for years and I still have so much to learn, so we're all learning together. Alright, so we're going to apply this downstroke and upstroke to a word. I'm going to show you how that works. So if I write the word love, you'll see that I'm going to be starting on an upstroke. So sometimes when you start on an upstroke, you got to kind of get a little puddle of ink, so I just kind of flex my nib and then I release the pressure. So you see how I'm letting it flex on the downstroke. And how do you know when you are doing a downstroke versus an upstroke? Well, if your pen is moving down, then you're doing a downstroke. So it is literally what it sounds like. You are just pushing down when you're moving in a downward motion, and you're releasing pressure when you move up. Okay, so whatever letter you're writing. Now you see how, now that I'm starting to run out of ink on my nib, it will start to do that, where it just kind of craps out on you. So when that happens, I always just stop, because it's easier to come in and fix the letter while you're doing it rather than trying to go back later. So just go back, okay? You can go back and fix parts, but it isn't quite as easy. Ink is not very forgiving, so sometimes it's not easy to fix your mistakes unless it's just a small hiccup. So just, don't get discouraged. Sometimes you just have to redo and redo and redo until you're happy with it, but it's a learning process, and that's okay. It's all part of the deal. So as you can see, the downstrokes and the upstrokes, that's the main thing to worry about with pointed pen. The second thing I like to focus on is the angle of your letters. So that's kind of where this oblique holder comes in, is it really helps you get that consistent angle. If you're shooting for a traditional script like copperplate or Spencerian, that angle becomes a lot more important, so that you want that 55-degree angle consistently across the board, and your baseline won't change. If you're going for a more modern calligraphy look, kind of like what I'm doing, the baseline's not quite as important, but you still kind of want to keep a similar angle with all your letters, because if you don't, it can make your letter look a little wobbly, and unless it's very intentional, it can kind of mess up the way your calligraphy looks. So for example, if I were to write the word enjoy and I have a not slanted E, okay, even though it's a nice enough E, if I do that up right and then I do the rest of it really slanted, you see how it looks a little off. It's not like it's bad, but it just looks a little off. So having the same angle across the board helps a lot with the consistency, unless you're being consistent with the angles being different. So unless you're making it look intentional, like maybe if I said, hey, enjoy, can you even see this? Yep, okay. And I do maybe a couple letters straight, and then maybe go into some, see how I kind of, that's okay. If you want to like make it a little bit bouncy, then that angle isn't quite as important. But again, the whole point of the pen being angled like this is to really help you get that nice consistent angle throughout your letters. So if you're just getting started, I would focus on keeping your letters consistent and work on that to start with, and then when you feel really comfortable and confident, then maybe you can break out and break some rules and see what works for you and get creative with that. But if you don't have that foundation, it's a little bit harder to break the rules and it still look the way you might picture it in your head. So all that to say, the most important features when you are starting out is learning these downstrokes and the upstrokes. So push down hard on the downstrokes, release the pressure on the upstrokes. Try to keep a consistent angle when you're getting started, and this oblique holder will help with that. You can also get a straight holder. This can be great for left-handed people. They might not need the help with the angle. So I have met lefties that do prefer the straight holder for everything. I've also used the straight holder for italicized scripts myself, even though I'm right-handed. But most of the times if I have an italicized script, I like to use the oblique holder. It just helps keep the hand cramps away and keeps the angle consistent. So those are just a few of my basic tips. Honestly, I'm just kind of brushing the surface of point and pen calligraphy, but that's a really great place to get started, and the most important thing is just to practice. So practice, practice, practice. You know, give yourself some grace if it doesn't look the way you like it to begin with, because it is a thing that takes a while to learn, and that is okay. So those people out there that make it look super easy, I promise they practiced a lot. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. Again, you can go to my Etsy shop and you can get all of the tools I used in this video, plus a practice workbook, and that I'll send that all to you. I'll personalize it for you, and hopefully it'll get you started on your new calligraphy hobby. So let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I'd love to hear from you. Happy lettering!